Donald Trump tugged at the front of his jacket. He adjusted his red necktie first slightly to the left, then back to the right. He pulled the sleeves of his jacket down to cover his shirt cuffs, then reached his arms straight out, drew them back, and pulled the sleeves down again. He turned and looked out the window. He saw the landscape swiftly passing beneath the helicopter. A moment ago it had been the gray concrete and asphalt of Gotham City. Now it was the green vegetation and brown water of the marshland. "What's the name of this place that we're going?" he asked the woman sitting next to him. Kellyanne Conway tapped her phone and answered, after a few seconds of scrolling, "Slaughter Swamp." Trump snorted. Very nice. The helicopter, branded on both sides of its fuselage with Trump's name in great gold letters, touched down in a grassy clearing just beyond the edge of the swamp. Trump and Conway disembarked. Waiting by the water was an enormous man, his face ashen, dressed in tatters that had apparently once been a business suit. The man stood next to an aluminum flat-bottom boat that had been pulled halfway into the grass. Conway approached the man and offered her hand. "Hello, Kellyanne Conway." "Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday," the man said. He did not shake her hand. "And this," Conway said, taking a step back, "is Mr. Trump." "Nice to meet you," Trump said, nodding cordially. "Solomon Grundy," came the reply. The man returned the nod. "Born on a Monday." The three of them climbed into the boat. Grundy pushed off with a long wooden pole, then propelled them steadily through the water by pushing the pole against the floor of the swamp, which looked to be at least 6 feet beneath the surface of the murky water. "Is the swamp always this deep?" Conway asked after several minutes of silence. Grundy shook his head. "Big rain." "If you don't mind my asking, how did you end up, like this?" Trump asked, gesturing toward Grundy with circular motions of both hands. "Dead," Grundy said. He brought the pole down and gave the boat another push. "Dead long time." "Who are you planning to vote for, if you don't mind my asking?" said Trump. "No vote," Grundy said. "Dead." "Who would you vote for if you could?" Trump asked. "Don't know," Grundy said. He lifted the pole. Water dripped from the end, making a tinkling sound as it fell. "Not you," Grundy said. Trump turned to Conway. "I told you," he said. "They're all voting for Hillary." Meanwhile, at the Hall of Doom, submerged within the deepest and most inaccessible region of the swamp, Gorilla Grodd tapped one of his bare feet on the floor, watching as Brainiac worked on the main computer in the Grand Hall. "Why is this taking you so long?" Grodd demanded. "I don't know," Brainiac said. "It worked fine last week." "This is preposterous," said Grodd. He began to pace back and forth behind Brainiac, gesturing wildly with his arms as he spoke. "You've been at this all afternoon. You're an android with a 12th level intellect who can directly interface with electronics." "And yet you ignored me when I told you not to upgrade to Windows 10, said Brainiac. Grodd lunged forward, leaning over the back of Brainiac's chair. "I told you that wasn't me. That was Sinestro." Hearing footsteps behind him, Grodd spun around. Sinestro had just entered the room. "Not talking about me while I'm not around, are we, fellows?" "Only for a second," said Grodd. "Don't get a big head about it." Grodd smiled imperceptibly. "Oops, too late." Sinestro made a fist with his left hand, brandishing the yellow power ring on his middle finger. "Were you aware bananas come in suppository form now? I could make you some, if you like." Grodd folded his arms and lowered his gaze at Sinestro. "Did you want something?" "Someone just came in through the starboard hatch," Sinestro said. "Just thought you'd want to know." "Was it our expected guest?" Grodd asked. "No," said the digitally modulated voice of someone in the corridor. "It was me." Black Manta entered a moment later. "Trump isn't here yet?" "No," said Grodd. "I didn't think you were coming." "Oh, there was no way I was going to miss this," Manta said, knocking on the broad, sleek metal helmet that covered his entire head. He walked past Grodd and Sinestro to take a seat at the horseshoe-shaped table that dominated the Grand Hall. Other members of the Legion filtered in over the next several minutes. They all took their customary seats around the table. The Cheetah, Scarecrow, the Riddler, Giganta, Captain Cold, the Toy Man, and last of all, Bizarro. Grodd took his place behind the lectern at the head of the table. He glared down at Bizarro. "I told you to make sure you were early," he growled. "Right," said Bizarro, looking puzzled. "And me was earlier than everyone else." Grodd rolled his eyes. He glanced over his shoulder at Brainiac, who was still struggling with the computer. "Are you through with that yet?" "I will be shortly, just give me a minute," Brainiac said. Grodd turned as Solomon Grundy entered the Grand Hall, with Donald Trump and Kellyanne Conway following a few steps behind. Grundy took his seat. Grodd smiled at Trump and gestured to 2 empty chairs on the right end of the horseshoe. "Mr. Trump, Mrs. Conway, welcome. Do sit down." Trump and Conway sat down. "Welcome to the Hall of Doom. Assembled before you are the greatest criminal masterminds in the world. I am Grodd, the conductor of this symphony of "Got it," said Brainiac, standing up from the computer and turning to take his seat at the table to the right of the lectern. The main computer's primary display, which occupied most of the wall behind the lectern, flashed on. The video image of Lex Luthor stared out from the screen. "Hello, my friends," Lex said, his lips curving slightly into a faintly detectable but unmistakably vicious smile. Grodd cleared his throat. "Mr. Luthor joins us remotely from his cell at Stryker's Island Penitentiary," he said. He turned to Brainiac. "You got it working, I see." "I reinstalled Windows 8.1, Brainiac said, folding his hands on the table. "Sit down, Grodd," Lex said. "You're obstructing the view." Grodd gritted his teeth. He took a step to the side and sat down in the chair to the left of the lectern. "Now then, let's begin," said Lex. "Hey, Donald." "Hi, Lex," said Trump. "How's prison?" "From what I hear, you'll find that out for yourself before very long," Lex said. His smile this time was more than faintly detectable. "How's the campaign?" "Fantastic," Trump said. "We're drawing record crowds everywhere we go. The media won't even report it because they're so scared and they're puppets of the Clinton machine. We're expecting to win and win big league." "I see," said Lex. "Brainiac, what do you calculate Donald's chances of winning the election to be at present?" "I estimate Mr. Trump has a 9.7% chance of accumulating the 270 electoral votes necessary to win the election," Brainiac said. That matches my own calculation," said Lex. "I estimate a 9.6% chance," said Grodd. "Yes, well, let's go with 9.7, said Lex. Grodd narrowed his eyes as Lex continued. "Doesn't sound like a big win to me, Donald." Trump sneered. "Those polls, you can't trust them. Those polls are rigged." "Didn't you tweet about being up by 3 points in the Rasmussen poll last week?" asked Giganta. "That's a good poll," said Trump. "Well," said Lex, "regardless of what the polls say, something tells me you wouldn't have come here if you really thought you were on your way to an election night victory. Am I wrong, Donald?" Trump inhaled sharply through his nose. "All right," he said. "I need some help." "Help with what?" Lex asked with a tone of affected innocence. "If Hillary does steal the election," Trump said, "I need help to steal it back." "I see," said Lex. "We will consider that request, of course, but first, I think some of our members have questions for you. Who would like to go first?" The Riddler raised his hand. "I will." He turned to Trump. "Riddle me this. What can be cracked, made, told, or played?" Trump thought a second. He shrugged and shook his head. "Answer? A joke," said the Riddler. "In other words, your candidacy." "That was not a question," said Trump. "I know," said the Riddler, "but I've been waiting to say that ever since I heard you were coming." "Does anyone else have something more substantial to say to Donald?" Lex asked. "Yes," said the cheetah. "I have a question." She turned in her chair to face Trump. "Why shouldn't I kill you?" She leaned back in her chair, tapping her fingertips together, her sharp claws clicking each time they met. "Because," Trump said, "nobody has more respect for—" "Fair warning," the cheetah interrupted. "If you finish that sentence, I will kill you." Trump swallowed. He looked toward the head of the table at Grodd. "Is she on heat, or whatever that's called?" he asked, indicating the cheetah with a nod. Sinestro projected an energy beam from his ring, and a translucent yellow seatbelt appeared on the cheetah's chair, restraining her from leaping across the table at Trump. The cheetah struggled against the restraint for a few seconds, then relaxed and sat back. "I'm okay," she said. "You good?" asked Sinestro. "I'm great," said the cheetah. Sinestro lowered his ring. The seatbelt vanished. The cheetah took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, then sprung out of her chair and dove across the room, tackling Trump out of his chair and landing on top of him on the floor. With her left hand, she clutched Trump's throat. Her right hand, she drew back over her head, claws pointed. "No, no, please, someone stop her, please!" cried Trump. Kellyanne Conway pushed her chair a few inches further away, but otherwise remained outwardly calm. "Cheetah," Lex said, "not everyone has had their turn yet." The cheetah released her grip on Trump's throat. She lowered her right hand and stood. "Sorry," she said. "Sometimes when I'm close to men like you, I just start killing them. It's like a magnet. Just kill, I don't even wait." "Who else has business with Donald?" Lex asked as the cheetah made her way back around the table. Black Manta raised his hand. "I've got something." As Black Manta spoke, Grundy walked over to Trump, pulled him to his feet by the back of the neck, and shoved him back down into his chair. "Why do you think you're doing so poorly as far as the black vote?" Manta asked. "Well, if I can be frank," Trump said, straightening his tie, "I don't think my plan to make America great again appeals to them. My plan is law and order. My plan is put people to work. Too many of the blacks are used to dealing drugs or getting a check from the government for doing nothing. It's sad, but what I said, unfortunately, it's true." "Yeah," said Manta. "So why is it all those white trailer park rednecks snorting hillbilly heroin and collecting welfare don't seem to have a problem with you?" Trump shrugged. "No, no," said Manta, leaning forward, facing Trump across the table. "I really want to know what you think. Because you said black people can't get behind you because they're into drugs and don't like to work. But white people who do drugs and don't like to work, you've got that voting bloc all locked up. And I'm just wondering what you think the difference is. Why that first group doesn't like you and that second group does." He extended his hand diplomatically in Trump's direction. "Your thoughts, sir?" Again, Trump shrugged. "I don't know." "Because I have an idea," Manta said, now pointing at Trump with the same hand he'd extended a moment ago. "I think the difference is that those white people don't like those black people, and they know that you don't like those black people either." "Wrong," said Trump. "Wrong. I'm the least racist person you'll ever meet." Laser beams shot out of the eyes of Manta's helmet, missing Trump's head by a fraction of an inch, charring the wall black behind him. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" yelled Trump. Beside him, Kellyanne Conway folded her hands in her lap and stared at the table. "I apologize," said Black Manta. "Something must be wrong with my trigger mechanism. I guess I better take this off until I can fix it, just to be safe." Black Manta removed his helmet and placed it on the table directly in front of him. "There. That's better now, isn't it?" Manta noticed Trump staring. "What's wrong?" he asked, brushing the back of his hand against the deep brown skin of his cheek. "Surprised I've got such a good complexion after wearing that helmet all the time?" "All right," said Lex. "Is anyone else a member of a group Donald here has denigrated during his presidential campaign?" The toy man raised his hand. "I'm a Muslim." "Shut up, Winslow," said Grodd. The toy man lowered his head. "I could have converted." "I have a question," said Grodd. "Mr. Trump, why are you running for president?" "To make America great again," Trump answered immediately. "No," Grodd said, furrowing his brow, inclining his head slightly forward. "Why are you running for president, truly?" Now, under the gorilla's telepathic control, Trump felt an overwhelming urge to answer the question honestly. I'm running for president," he said, fighting each word as he pronounced it, "because Obama made jokes about me 5 years ago. I was humiliated. I had to show him." "Thank you," said Grodd, relinquishing his psychic hold on Trump's brain. Trump slumped back in his chair, exhausted, as though he just relaxed after tensing every muscle in his body. "If there's no other business, I think we've heard enough," said Lex. All those in favor of helping Donald Trump acquire the presidency of the United States, please raise your hands. No one sitting at the table raised their hand. Looks unanimous, said Lex. Sorry, Donald. See you soon. Yes, Mr. Trump, said Scarecrow. I fear we will be unable to help you. There was silence as everyone else in the room stared at Scarecrow. Oh, to hell with you all, he said. I haven't said a word since I walked in here. Lex cleared his throat. Grodd. Grodd nodded at the image of Lex, then turned to Captain Cold. Leonard. Trump turned toward Captain Cold just in time to catch a glimpse of the icy ray projecting from his freeze gun. A moment after that, there was nothing. Several hours later, Donald Trump awoke to the sound of distant helicopter rotors. He opened his eyes and looked skyward to see his personal chopper approaching. He got to his feet and brushed himself off. As he did, he felt his phone vibrating in his inside jacket pocket. He took out his phone and saw that he had received a text message. The text message read, Donald, it seems you really are without a friend in the world. My condolences, though you have only yourself to blame. It's just as well. Petty revenge for a bruised ego is a poor motivation to seek the presidency. Now, taking over the world, that we could relate to. Unfortunately, you're unsuited for such a task. And anyway, the White House is a poor headquarters from which to carry out global domination. Believe me, I know. Be well, or don't. It's of little concern to me. Sincerely, Lex Luthor. Trump's helicopter touched down. He climbed aboard. As he was fastening his seatbelt, the pilot looked over his shoulder and asked, What happened to Mrs. Conway? Just then, Trump's phone buzzed again. Another text. Oh, by the way, it read, Your campaign manager, Mrs. Conway, found her own way home. She left her contact information at the Hall of Doom and seemed quite keen for us to call should we ever have a position for her. It seems she has no objections to evil, only to incompetence. Thanks for making us look good by comparison. Enjoy the ride home. L. Forget her, Trump yelled to the pilot. She's gone. Who needs her? Trump called Sean Hannity. He held the phone to the side of his head, listening to the line ring once, twice, 3 times, 4. Then suddenly he was hearing Hannity's voicemail message. Trump ended the call. Probably turned it off and forgot to turn it back on, he said to himself as he tucked his phone back into his pocket. Did you say something, sir? Asked the pilot. No, nothing, Trump said. He sat there in silence for the rest of the flight, staring at his hands as they rested in his lap. Well, folks, that was it. That's my story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like this video or share it or subscribe to this channel if you're not subscribed already. And also, please consider helping me to make more videos like this and also videos unlike this that actually have, a visual component by supporting this channel of mine through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks so much for watching, or should I say listening, and I'll see you next time.